Hi, my name's Sarah Winter and I'm one of the Senior Business Development Managers at Baines Simmons.
And I'm Bob Simmons, one of the founders and directors at Baines Simmons.
Bob, can you explain the new safety management system requirements?
Yeah, sure. So some time ago, ICAO introduced a new requirement for safety management systems across every aspect of aviation. And that's been gradually being rolled out around the world by the individual national authorities or group authorities like EASA. What they have chosen to do within Europe is to introduce an integrated management system requirement which integrates safety risk management. So that's been rolling out over a number of years, initially starting with air traffic and then into aerodromes, then going into air operators, the airlines, etc., and then now moving into the airworthiness organisation space, so maintenance organisations, design and production organisations. And it's those requirements that have just recently come into effect, and we're now in a transition period to introduce this new safety risk management activity as part of an integrated management system.
Okay, so what organisations does this affect?
So it should be applying to all different sectors of aviation now. Previously rolled out in aerodromes, air traffic and air operators. So we're in a transition period in Europe at the moment where it's being introduced into those airworthiness organisations. So maintenance organisations, production organisations and designers. And it's those at the moment that are introducing this within their management systems as an integral part.
Okay, so how can Baines Simmons help organisations with this implementation?
Okay, so our focus is to help organisations to implement something that's really going to contribute to the overall business success. So firstly, that's with competence development, to help people at all the different levels within the organisation to understand the intent of the new rules, but more importantly, how it can be embedded into normal business process to contribute to that success that I mentioned, which can be profitability, reputation, service delivery, reliability, efficiency, any of those things it can really contribute to. So the second aspect is where we can work with organisations to design those structures, the systems, the processes and the procedures, and to help them to understand what competences they need to really get the value out of this new requirement back into the business.
So in your experience, what are the gotchas that clients have faced as a result of this?
It's a great question. And there's a few common recurring ones that we've seen. So the first would be that an organisation starts with the regulation, ticks all of the boxes, meets the regulator's needs and complies with all of the guidance material and acceptable means of compliance, but ends up with a system that is fit only for the regulation and doesn't really fit into or support the wider organisation and its wider success. The second one is really focusing too much on safety, which sounds a bit odd, I'm sure, because when we're talking about the concept of safety management systems, then surely safety is the driver. I think that we've got experience over the years of recognising that safety can sometimes be seen as a bolt-on, and that's one of the problems of referring to this thing as safety management system, because it sounds like a separate system. Whereas actually if you have a management system that integrates the management of safety risk, then you can embed the thinking wider into the other threats to an organisation that could cause it harm. So what we recommend to organisations is that really think about their environment, their customers, their products and services, and to really understand what good looks like from a wider perspective of threats to the organisation. And in that way, safety thinking really gets embedded into and almost dissolves within the thinking of risk management within the organisation. So it's a strong one for me, is to build a system that's really fit for purpose for each individual organisation and not to get too focused on just safety. Safety will follow if you set your people up for success.
Okay, so what about the cost, Bob? Because companies could end up investing a huge amount of money into this.
I mean, on the face of it, there is a large amount of effort and some cost that's going to be incurred in setting this thing up if you're going to get it to work for you. I would argue that if you set it up properly, then the benefits that you achieve to the wider organisation, especially in terms of profitability and efficiency, effectiveness of the organisation, they will far outweigh in a short time the costs of actually getting this right. So it's a choice that you make of either taking a tick box approach where you can make the regulator happy, or actually you can develop something, take a little bit longer to get it right, but it will contribute to the wider success of the organisation. And that's where we can help.
So is this a one-time development for companies or something they can carry into the future?
So the initial setup is where most of the effort is going to be, mainly in the thinking and the creating of a system if you come up with something that's really going to work. But the whole point of the system is that it's generative, in that it actually improves and continuously evolves over a period of time. And that's from the lessons learned. And that could be in the wider organisation where safety risks or other business risks are being mitigated along the way. Or it could be within the safety risk management element itself, because that should be monitored by the safety manager to ensure that it is learning and it is continuously improving and getting better at managing safety risk. So it's not one time, it does need to be kept alive. And I think that anything that goes stagnant can very quickly go out of date and lose its value. There is the situation where an organisation's environment, either its financial pressures or the type of work that it does, additional sites, etc., will need to be accommodated. So it needs constant reflection on whether it's still fit for purpose and whether it's still adding value.
Do you have any success stories you can share with us?
Yeah. The funny thing about this is that if we're successful, then there's not much drama that's actually out there anyway. But I do recall working with an airline some time ago in the early implementation in the air ops space, where they were considering their new charter route structure going forward. And they were challenged to fly into an alpine airport for the ski season that was particularly challenging.
Okay.
They looked at it and thought it was a bit risky. And thankfully, somebody said, oh, there's that word risk, so we better run this through what they referred to as the SMS. So they raised it as a hazard and then did a risk assessment going into this airport. And they decided not to operate into there that year. Now, the benefit to them was that the next year, when the commercial people said to them, can we fly into that airport again? They'd already done a risk assessment, so they could look at what had changed, whether it was the equipment, whether it was the volume of flights, whether it was something at the destination airport. And in this case, they did actually decide not to operate again, but the work was predominantly done and recorded in a structured way from the previous year. So it just made decision making a lot clearer and a lot more professional and commercially based, rather than just saying, well, it feels a bit risky, so we won't do it.